Hopefully I won't hear another noise on the background. Otherwise I'll have to go back and mute it.
We will try. It looks like we are on YouTube Live. So welcome everybody to the Académie Lafayette School Board meeting. We are all virtual tonight, which turned out well for tonight's weather. So we're excited to have everybody with us. Whoop. Your screen isn't shared anymore.
It's shared now?
Yes, now we can.
Yeah, because I want to mute the YouTube, otherwise we'll be hearing two voices.
Yep. All right, we can go ahead and go to the next slide. I think the first thing we need to do is to approve tonight's meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
This is Gwen Poss. I move to approve the meeting agenda.
This is Kelly. I second it.
Wonderful. Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Do we know, I know there was a question, since we're virtual now, we weren't sure if we were going to do the athlete recognition this month. Are we pushing that to next month?
Yes.
Okay. We also had another parent sign up to speak. She hasn't joined us virtually, so I would recommend if we see her log in, she has the Zoom link. So when we see her log in, we will allow time for her to speak, but we haven't seen her yet. So we'll go ahead and move on. Hopefully everybody got the October minutes. Sorry that they were a little bit late in getting out to you, but can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Jen. I approve.
Do we have a second?
Second, this is Lauren Allen.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. I think, you know what, we don't have a slide for the PTO president's report. So before we do, because we didn't think that there was going to be a component. Typically we'll put the PTO updates in with the shared folder that we all do in review, but Brandy Molina, who ended up not being able to be here tonight, she did ask that I just read through a couple concerns. She always wants to help us be aware of any concerns. And as people will remember, we did sort of start our own busing service for Armor. We thought that that would help to ease the issues at Cherry, but I'll read you what I have gotten from Brandy regarding busing concerns. We've had 1 week of Armor buses being AL ran. Armor bus routes are going well. Unfortunately, that has not helped open Cherry buses. There are many instances of kids not getting home until 6. On Friday, bus 8 at Cherry left late at 4:46. Parents were emailed the bus 8 left the school at 4:38, which is about an hour after the end of school. There were no texts or phone calls made prior to that to notify parents. If a text would have been sent earlier, perhaps some parents could have come get their kids. Then bus 8 got lost in KCK and kids didn't get home until 7. And parents were just not aware of what was going on and were very concerned. Another quote from a parent: my daughter got home past 7 at 5:50. They told me she was nearby and gave the coordinates of the bus. 30 minutes later, no bus. They said it was terrifying. And then one final sort of parent comment. They wanted to share that their son, who doesn't get scared, was very scared. He legitimately thought they were getting kidnapped. Kids were crying. Oh. I shouldn't have to feel like I need to get my 9-year-old phone a tracking device, but here we are. I do not trust the bus company at all. First student needs to have dispatch operating until all students are off the buses. The school needs to communicate with parents when the buses are late. Getting an email from Madam Royce an hour after school dismissed that the bus left just doesn't help anyone. So I think our hope was these things that when first student was not required to do as much, that they would have more effective service. It's definitely worrisome that that seems to not be the case. So would love to know what the current plan is for just the elementary busing issues. I know it is not fair to put this on the building admin, we should be able to sort of contract for services and get the service that we pay for. That is not happening. So just curious where we are with elementary busing.
Well, thank you. Yes, that was a real problem on last Friday, and Heather, the principal of Cherry, had been receiving a lot of emails of very upset parents, and yeah, it was really disappointing. I think that, and then Heather had been in contact with first students and sent them email to see what's going on and how do we resolve that. So it turned out that on Friday, according to first student, the driver was absent, the driver was en route, and then they had a substitute driver who took, even with that, taking more than 2 hours to get home was unacceptable. So they said that today the driver was back. I don't know how it's going today, whether or not all the kids are at home or not. But if Heather wants to give more detail, please, you're welcome to do it. But we have been working with first student to try to resolve those things. In general, leaving is no longer a problem. When I said not longer a problem, of course, there is much less delay. Now they leave at around 4:15, they left. But the problem at Oak, the issue there is there are a couple of buses arriving at 8:40, 8:50, around that. So that has been an issue, but it had improved in general for the pickup, I would say. But the drop-off at Cherry has been a problem with those drivers who do not know the routes. So we have been working with first student to see how we can resolve it. They said that because of rerouting, the drivers needed to adjust, but the incident on last Friday was due to a new driver who doesn't know what's going on. And they don't have a tracking device for parents like an app, unfortunately. Heather, do you want to have something to add?
Yeah, I talked with them last Wednesday, I believe, to ask about this was before the nightmare on Friday night, about the drivers seem to still be changing. So parents were asking, why don't we have a consistent driver? Yes, we've been asking about an app to track kids, as well as inconsistent or the bus routes. Like the bus 8 that was so late Friday night has 35 kids on it, and other buses have 18. And I said, why are we not rerouting some of these kids onto other buses? And every answer I get is, we're looking into it, or we're working on it, or it's not ready yet. I asked for contact information. They gave me the wrong phone number to give to parents. I stayed late Friday night to try to field the phone calls, but clearly not late enough. I don't have the ability to send the texts that were being sent. So the best I could do was an email on Friday night to let parents know when it had left. And then I stayed for an extra hour to try to field phone calls and respond to the emails that I got early. And so I followed up today, and yes, it was a substitute driver, and that yes, they did get lost. And I shared with them most of the comments that you have, Beth. I spent 3 hours this morning dealing with bus issues, trying to respond to every parent who would let me know what time their bus got home, what their child went through, and all of that. I went in this afternoon. That bus was late again this afternoon. It left at 4:30. But it was the regular driver, or a regular driver, back again. So I sent an email to those parents letting them know what time the bus left, so that they could hopefully, and the corrected phone number, so that they could hopefully contact the bus company if needed. I asked our receptionist to stay a little late to answer those phone calls. So at the building level, we truly are doing our best, but with Dr. Sumi's not here. And so this has really kind of fallen on us.
And I will say, so, I mean, I know almost nothing about this situation. I just sort of see these comments from parents, I have no doubt this is not an issue that the building isn't doing it, right? I think it's unfair the amount of time you have to dedicate to figuring this out. We pay somebody for this service and we should be able to rely on that. And when you have to spend hours during a day doing this, you can't do all of the things that actually help educate our children. So I think it is unreasonable to be putting this on the building. I know there's no other option, but I am curious what our plan. I mean, we're going on 3 months now of completely ineffective bus service. It is great. I hear rave reviews about Armor, so I think that definitely solved the problem for them. But I'm curious what our plan is currently to address these issues, because First Student does not seem to be responsive. They don't seem to do what we need them to do.
Yeah, as Heather said, Dr. Sumi is on a leave. At this point, I was not at school. So I know he had been on top of First Student and pushing them on certain things. Even rerouting had been a problem. Cherry and Oak, we had worked with them for a few times just to reroute certain kids. The thing is probably meeting again with them and see, because now it's very, very close because they only have now 5 buses for Cherry. If they need to add a sixth one to diminish the number of kids so that the route would take less time, we're all for it. They don't have to do 5 routes there, because Cherry and Armor had 10 routes. When we took out our 5 routes, so they kept only 5 routes. So they don't have to do that. If they need to have a smaller route, another one, or reroute buses, reorganize them so that they're more equal number of kids on each buses. Unfortunately, they take time to adjust to something that is common sense.
Yeah. And I mean, we can follow up separately. I'm curious, anything that I can do or the board can do to help figure out a solution, because I just think parents must be losing their mind. Everybody in the building must be losing their minds, continuing to have to deal with this all too frequently. So, but we can follow up separately to see anything that I or the board can do to help resolve the issue.
I would like to add, sorry I'm late, I would like to add that they shouldn't disconnect their phone line. And it's one thing, we understand that things happen, they have to, my daughter was on that bus. I understand things happen, they can't control it, but they have to own it and answer the phone. Like, that can't be something that happens anymore. And we were calling and they clearly had just taken the phone off the hook, and that's not acceptable.
I agree. It's not our staff that should be staying later to sort of figure out where those buses are. It's for students. They should not still be on the bus at that time. And if they are, at a minimum, they need to sort of be talking to parents and addressing where their child is.
Mike, how did it go tonight? Bus number 8.
She got home fine, 4:45-ish, something like that. It was normal afternoon.
Okay, so I think what we need to do, I know Heather has been on top of it and doing a fantastic job, and amazing one, of course, to help resolve this. A lot of time for her. Hopefully we, Heather already told them about these phone issues. Hopefully they will address it once for all, and otherwise we can schedule another meeting with them and see, because we need to be all the time on top of things. Unfortunately, I have heard, somebody told me, one school administrator who was First Student told me that they have national drivers, they move around, and sometime when they get there, things are much better. And then after they moving around, unfortunately. So we will continue to see how we would avoid a situation like Friday, which was really bad.
All right, well, keep us updated on how those conversations go. I'm glad that Friday was a little bit of an anomaly, and that's not something that's happening every day, but it can't ever happen. I mean, that is just beyond inappropriate how they handled that.
Yeah, you should know when Heather say the bus arrive at 4:30, I think kids finish at 4:15. So it was 45 minutes after the end of the day. But it's much better than arriving at 6 o'clock like we used to have, or 5 o'clock, but it's not normal.
Right. All right. Any other questions about busing? We still have a lot to figure out there, I'd say. Okay, we can go ahead and move on. So, I mean, I think the biggest piece we want to talk through today is the strategic plan. You all will remember the 2 sessions we did over the summer. We left those with some draft objectives that we started to look at our last meeting. Mr. Mbang and his team were continuing to look at it to see what they recommend. So, Mr. Mbang, do you want to sort of talk us through?
Yeah, with the principal, we had a lot of, few meetings to discuss it and come up with goals that are not too many, but also that make sense. The rationale behind this is, first, we want to look like Kansas City. We brought the diversity in our school, and then change our culture to accommodate that diversity. And then how do we make sure every kid that we have is successful? And then the fourth part is, of course, teacher. What kind of teacher do we want to be able to sustain that diversity? So we wanted to have 3 goals kind of that capture everything per 3 objectives, per goals. So here, the first one is about ethnic and racial diversity to reflect Kansas City. So the second one is about the poverty, the socioeconomic. So racial and ethnic and the socioeconomic part. However, we looked at KCPS poverty rate is at 19%. First, we were aiming at 30%, but after knowing that it's 15%, now it makes sense why it's hard for us to go over the 24% free and reduced. Because if knowing that also there is a higher percentage of middle class going to private schools as opposed to public schools. And the last one is of course the retention rate, which is not much higher than we used to be because of the 8th grade student going. The retention rate for 8th grade student to 9th grade is much higher.
You mean the retention from 8th to 9th is much lower than that?
Lower. The attrition rate from 8th grade to 9th grade is much higher as usual, of course. So is there any question about this so we can move forward, or what do you do, adopt by goals, or how would you want to do?
I think what we'll do, so we will review, and so the ones on the left side of your screen, those are the proposed changes. The ones on the right are what we sort of left our retreat with. We'll look through each one of the slides, take any questions or further discussion that we need to have, and then vote on all of them as a whole, essentially.
One thing though, I want to add, maybe I will have to discuss it with you later. As I thought about all this, I'm referring to our very first strategic plan, 13-18. I have the impression that there is a fourth goal later missing, is the infrastructure, buildings, equipment. What our vision of what do you want for our building and so on. But that can be a later discussion.
And one thing that we did look into, I think there's always the question mark, what is the breakdown of demographics in the KCPS boundaries? It is 55% students of color, 45% white generally. And so that's the ultimate goal that we're working towards, even though over a 5-year period, as you'll remember, when we look at our demographics, they can only change so much each year. Since we only recruit at kindergarten, we won't get to that 55% level, but that's our ultimate goal, is mirroring the district that we serve, essentially. Any thoughts, comments, concerns on this piece? All right, we can go ahead to the next one.
So this one was the toughest one because it's more immature material, and we had to rely on surveys and also some of the data to be able to track indicators of success. What we looked at is first of all, what culture is supportive culture, which ensures safety and well-being of students. And the inclusiveness, of course, plus partnership with the community. And there's the fourth one, added more attendance, discipline, and co-curricular participation rate to make sure that they match every student, the majority too. But we'll be using culture survey to track some of the indicator of success.
So those are the metrics that we'll look at. As you all will remember, we're working with SLU to figure out what is the right survey tool to utilize. We felt like the one that we utilized last year maybe needs some revisions to really show us what we need to know based on the culture of our school. And I do think the culture work that we will do is some of the most important work we'll do as a board. So that's why on those two, the metrics that we'll use, it would be from those surveys. We're just still figuring out exactly what that is. So, but that's what we would be looking to measure from our surveys.
Any question about this one? So this one has 3 components. We want our students to get at least 75% for French and the MAP tested subjects, but also close the achievement gap for all subjects, for all student groups, subgroups. So when we say subgroups, we're talking about free and reduced, ELL, IEP students. That's what we meant by subgroups. And the last one is about high school. How do you make sure that all our high school graduates, college and career ready by 2023? Oh, 8, sorry. So what you can see here, we changed, there's some changes that we made here, 100% to all of them, and then consolidating the subgroups to make sure that it's only one. And then 75% was based on where we are after the pandemic and what would be the annual growth every year, but in 5 years.
Any questions or thoughts? Okay, we can go ahead to the next one.
This is for teachers. What had mainly changed here is the retention rate. First, if you look on the right side, was 85% annually. A retention rate, what was proposed, we proposed 90%, because at this point we are around 84%. We thought that maybe it'd be good to stretch a little bit, get to 90%. With the UCM benchmark, it was 85% for retention rate, but we think that it would be good to get to 90% of teacher retention rate by 2028. The next one, the second one is about supportive and collaborative environment. Of course, this one will not be easy to track, but we need to look at teacher survey, but also professional development needs survey also. So if you see 90% of new teachers will be certified, as a charter school, we can have up to 20% non-certified teachers. So we should take us to 80%. However, what we want is if we have any non-certified teachers, because it has been extremely difficult. Sometimes you have somebody leaving and you can't find a replacement, to make sure that the teacher goes through the certification process. But charter school can have up to 20% non-certified teachers.
And then the one I will share, sort of that number 5, 90% of teachers will demonstrate competency in the classroom. The reason that that was taken out is because we feel like the other metrics we're looking at, are we closing the achievement gap? Does our culture survey show we have strong relationships with parents? Those are the metrics that will tell us if we're actually having the culture and have successful teachers versus that one. So we felt like we could accomplish that through other metrics that we're looking at.
And it is an easy goal to cheat for. If you want me to have 90% of the teachers demonstrate competence, I can give everybody a great mark and get it. Unfortunately, that's the issue, is the No Child Left Behind, holding teachers accountable. Sometimes it has been a problem. But we think, as Beth said, if we were able to educate all our kids very well, it means that our teachers and administrators are very competent. So there's also on top of this a metrics that I shared with you, a draft metrics of how we're going to track it, how we're going to track those goals and the timeline, plus indicator of success, plus what instrument we're using for survey, for measure. All those elements are part of DESI's requirement to develop for developing a strategic plan or a school improvement plan. So when we're doing this, we're thinking also of what requirement DESI has for our MCIP6 review. Another thing also is probably the district performance committee will maybe overseeing the strategic plan. And we need also having the strategic committee, meaning teachers, parents, and staff and board members meeting at least once a year together for review of where we are.
And I mean, what we were talking about is our yearly retreat that we typically do as a board would look more like what our retreats looked like last year, to help revise this strategic plan and include building administrators, teachers, parents, really talking about what progress did we make and engaging in that conversation, as well as the district performance committee that meets each week would align what are the metrics that we're looking at with the things that you see here in this, and also what Mr. M mentioned, those more detailed plans that once we approve these objectives, the buildings will come up with the plan as to how do we get there? What does that look like? And I know they've already begun that discussion. So any other sort of final questions regarding just the proposed changes to the strategic plan objectives? If not, I think we just need a motion to approve the new strategic plan.
Motion to approve, Jen Goldman.
We have a second.
This is Kelly. I second it.
Second.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you all for your help with that. I do think we had really great discussions over the summer to help us get to this place. And I think it will be really helpful for us as a board to have those critical measures that we'll look at moving forward to know if we're on track. So I appreciate everybody's time. I know it took a lot of time over the summer, so I appreciate that from everybody.
Yeah, if you go on to the folder, you can see the metrics, the spreadsheet, and you can look at it. And if you have any suggestion or feedback, please let us know.
So before we go to board policies, I saw we had our parent speaker log in, and I apologize for any sort of issues with the Zoom link. I'm glad you were able to join us. Are you still there, Stephanie?
I am. Let's see here. Hi there.
You are there. All right. So you can go ahead and have your 3 minutes to talk about whatever you would like.
Great. I have this big ongoing request on air filtration, ventilation, getting kids outside more, all the things that will make schools safer in light of living in a pandemic and epidemic. As you may have read in the email I sent, on Friday, we officially entered a flu epidemic in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic last week. And so some specific requests regarding the kind of measurement of air quality and how to get this to be something that's actionable for an individual teacher in a room to know what the air quality is would be the CO2 monitors as a proxy for air quality. And I've poured over the Children's Mercy air quality report for the Oak campus many times, and one of the things that comes up in that report is that many of the rooms met the pre-existing standard for sufficiency for ASHRAE. But the COVID research has a whole different sort of story that it tells about, how to reduce infectiousness with an airborne disease. And there was some controversy in the beginning over whether COVID is airborne, if you can just distance, but, that the scientific community has really worked to settle that. And, this idea that, you can just avoid infection by staying 6 feet apart. If you have an aerosolized virus that, just floats in the air for 3 to 6 hours, then if a child goes into the music room in the morning, every kid that goes in there after is potentially exposed to aerosolized particles floating in the air. One of the cool things about part of the Oak building is it was built so long ago that those builders had this really good understanding of airflow because there were no air conditioners. So those buildings are really built to have those multiple windows open, and it whips air in and whips air out. If you've ever opened a couple of those windows and had papers flying all over the place. So some of Oak is really designed for sort of natural ventilation, but you actually then have to open the windows when it's very hot and when it's very cold. And so putting together some sort of parent volunteer corps that does something similar to what we do in Beautify Oak, where we monitor these HEPA filters, log them into a list, vacuum and change the filters on a schedule. Typically, the sort of filter that will, capture dust and some of the pollens and allergens is like 3 months, and then annually for the other filters. So I'm also hoping and I think am planning to present to the Council d'École. But we are currently right now in a pediatric hospital crisis. Obviously, here in Kansas City, we just had the announcement that Children's Mercy is filling up air quality in schools, whether it be from masking, which is controversial, or air purifying, which is non-controversial generally. Will go a long way to make our kids healthier. And this respiratory surge is largely RSV and flu, but there's a lot of stuff going around about how the kids hadn't been exposed to these diseases, and that's what's causing them to get ill. And, that is not the way that many people are interpreting the data, because there is a mounting evidence that COVID has a long-term immunodeficiency effect. And so by having children come into a respiratory season with an immune system deficiency and lung damage from COVID, now they're facing a typical virus, which did not previously cause as many hospitalizations. And now it's causing lots and lots more hospitalizations. So I'm sure my 3 minutes are up. Here is the reason that I am so concerned. Here she is. And can you say hello, Susie? Can you say hello? Hi. Thank you for your time. And I hope that I can continue to work with school and parents to organize funding and resources and volunteer time. I know my family is able, I think, to volunteer enough to take care of Oak, but I'm happy to keep the data logs and things like that for all campuses.
We really appreciate your willingness to sort of think about what can we do for kids, and your willingness to sort of be a part of the solution. So we will continue to think with you. I know you're also talking with the council, Nicole, but really appreciate your dedication.
Thanks again for your time, and you guys have a great evening.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Whoop, there we go. So the next piece, there are a range of motions that we just need to adapt regarding some policies that we need on the books. You can see each of the policies that we need to move to adopt tonight. If I could get just somebody to read one, and then we'll second it. So can somebody read motion number 1?
I move to appoint Jessica Wallace as the Académie Lafayette Title IX coordinator and to have said information posted on our website.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, reader for number 2.
I move to appoint Jessica Wallace as the Académie Lafayette's coordinator to receive discrimination, sexual harassment complaints, and to have said information posted on our website.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Number 3.
I move to appoint Liz Seeley as the Académie Lafayette's homeless student coordinator and to have said information posted on our website.
Do we have a second?
Ms. Gwynn, I second.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 4. There number, and then number 5. This is the end of it. So 2 more. Who can read number 4?
I hereby move to appoint Molly Kane as the Académie Lafayette's English Language Learners Coordinator and to have said information posted on our website.
Second.
Ms. Gwynn, I second.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, last one.
All right. I move to adopt the most recent version MCE policies as provided, except those provisions that are duplicative of our current policies and/or procedures are excluded, and those policies and/or procedures which are not applicable to charter schools in general or Académie Lafayette specifically are excluded, with an understanding that our Director of Finance and attorney will review all the policies in order to ensure Académie Lafayette is current and compliant with requisite policies and procedures, and will provide a finalized version of the blended policies.
Okay.
This is Gwynn, I second.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. So that helps us just make sure we have all the policies on the books, which seems monotonous, but is really important. Dana is jumping for joy over there that we now have everything that we need and we are in compliance as we need to be. So anything you would add, Dana? Other than your cheerleading?
Hallelujah.
So, Stephen was talking about the ELL one. I think that the ELL one was covered. Jackie sent me something. If it is not covered, we'll need it. It's because ELL and homeless have to be adopted today, because otherwise we'll be out of compliance. So I'm glad it's been done. We'll go and check it and see if there's anything we can add there.
No, sir, I think this gets us compliant. We have everything now, and now we can go back and peel back as opposed to trying to do it the other way, which has not been very successful. But now we know everything's covered, and we'll peel out and get a nice booklet for you all to have going forward. And this will be we now know we're compliant as of today, and going forward, when new laws go into effect, we have a starting point of where we were.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help with that matter, Dana. I know it has been complicated, so. All right, Stephen.
All right, so we're going to talk about accounts payable first. You want to go to the next slide for me? Okay, so just a few, we talked over the accounts payable transactions that were noted in the finance report that went out last week. But in addition to that, we also talked about the Amazon Capital Service transaction. And so Harriet asked about that one. And so what that is the pay by invoice payment method with Amazon. So that was just the additional item that we discussed about accounts payable. Did anyone have any questions over any of the transactions that they looked over? If not, can we have a motion to approve those transactions?
I move to approve the October accounts payable.
Second.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
If you would go to the next slide. So for the financial statements, so for September, revenues and expenses, we were actually break even for September, the month of September. We received more than we spent by about $2,000. So that was pretty good. Typically, we spend more than we receive during the first few months. But if you notice there too on the slide, cumulatively though, we have spent more than we received July through September, and that's by $500,000. You know, part of that is the armor renovations, third and fourth floor. That's the biggest part of that. So just wanted to point that out, and that's just from a cash in, cash out perspective. If you want to go to the next slide for me, I know that's really tiny. I didn't really want to spend too much time talking about forecast, at least when we're looking at September. But probably the highlight to this this screen here, I'm going to see if I can draw. So if you notice here, net income is we're projecting will be a positive $700,000 by the end of the year. And the reason for that, the biggest reason for that, is a DESI adjustment that we received early. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we advance on a few more of these slides. If you would go to the next slide there. Let me get rid of that annotation. There we go. And so this is just another reiteration of net income is what we're projecting for the year to be 770. Keep going to the next slide for me. Days cash, we project to be 118 days. So we have 118 days worth of cash to use up. Fund balance, we're projecting by the end of the year would be 32%. And so fund balance would increase by that $700,000. If you would go to the next slide. Actually, go back 2 slides for me, 3 slides. So just some variances. Go back 1 more for me. 1 more. Go back 2 slides for me. One more slide. Should be the tiny one. There we go. Thank you. So just variances. We always talk about variances. And so what I mean by variances, if we're looking at the budget versus actual, we want to note those differences and know why, we have those. And so when we talked in finance committee, we noted that, care and upkeep of grounds had $16,000 over budget, and that was to do with the asphalt work at Armor. And so we had some repair work that had to be done there on the parking lot, and then also the retaining wall. And so that's why we're spending more than what we had budgeted there. Textbooks were $20,000 over. We're piloting Eureka Math this year, and so we had to purchase some extra textbooks in order to do that. And then also the current math supplier, or the previous math textbook supplier, didn't come through on what they had promised, and so we had to go with a new vendor for mathematics. One additional variance, or at least another variance, was the liability insurance. We've talked about this previously. Liability insurance came in $13,000 more than what we budgeted. So might want to plan on that next year. Next item was the admin tech equipment. So we purchased $60,000 worth of equipment, and what that goes towards is the 3rd and 4th floor setup of Armor. So we had the smart boards that we had to program and get set up, and then also we've set up a high school computer lab, and so we spent $60,000 more than what we were expecting there. And then just another variance, the $300,000 in the Armor renovations, 3rd and 4th floor. We spent just about $300,000. We have another $100,000 that we're expecting to have to spend there. So those were the variances that we had talked about in finance meeting. Were there any questions over the SUI financials or any of those transactions?
No questions, but I think we should take a moment to celebrate the fact that the fix the glitch came through so much. I mean, we weren't anticipating that until at least next school year, correct?
That's right. Yep. And I'll talk a little bit more on that too here in a few slides. So yeah, that's fantastic news. Really excited about that.
Right. Yes.
Mr. Peng, would you go a few slides forward now? There we go. So the summer school report, we typically do an analysis on the summer school just to see if we made money, or not made money, but if we came out ahead rather than behind. And so for summer school, we had 102 average daily attendance. And so what that translates to is $1 million in revenue. And so we had expenses obviously related to summer school of $800,000. So our revenue over expenses was just under $300,000. We were over budget though on expenses. And so we did talk about some of those expenses in finance meeting. There were some additional wages that needed to be paid because we had a math emphasis. And so we were over budget on wages due to those math teachers, but also we had substitutes that had to fill in for our staff. But then we also had some contracts as substitutes. And so we were over budget in those categories. And then one of the big categories we were over budget on was data processing. We spent $53,000, which is 5% of the revenue that we received. And so that's something we didn't budget for. And so next year when we're planning, or this year when we're planning, that's something I definitely want to look at and make sure we have that budgeted. Just one note there, last year, summer school revenue, those were over expenses by $127,000. So this year was better than last year. And a big part of that is the new DESE funding. They're funding us at closer to $10,000 as opposed to $8,000. So we have a boost there of $2,000 per weighted ADA. Any questions over that summer school report that was included in the finance packet?
I mean, I make an assumption that anytime in summer school that we spend less than we take in, that was a good year for summer school, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So yeah, I mean, I think that is great to hear. I think the summer school component is such a critical piece of our work because we're an immersion school. So the fact that it's not a drain on the budget is a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, if you want to go to the next slide for me. Okay, so just some other items that I want to discuss. So we've talked about debt refinance, and so I wanted to give you an update on that, as well as some of those capital project, or at least a capital project that was included with that. So we did receive some unfavorable news about the Oak appraisal. When we were looking at it initially, we were assuming that the Oak appraisal would come in close to what it appraised at back in 2014. It didn't. And so in 2014, it appraised at close to $8.6 million. This appraisal came back at $1.9 million. And you might be wondering why, as I was. And so when I talked with the banker about it, what the appraiser did in 2014, they looked at national comparables. And so there were comps from various states: Arizona, Colorado, North Carolina, Texas, Utah. And so it was a nationwide comparable. This go around, they were focused in on Kansas City area. So there was Kansas City, Shawnee, and Olathe is what they looked at for our appraisal. The banker did go to bat for us, though, and he did have at least rework it and got us up to $2.3 million, which again doesn't sound like much, but what that translates to is we don't have as much collateral, at least the value of collateral, and we won't be able to get a $2 million capital projects loan in addition to the refinance. So what the bank is able to offer us is a $3.6 million loan at 5.5% over a 20-year amortization, but it does mature at the end of the new market tax credit transaction, which is June 2025, or at least 2025. So it still seems like a decent deal, though. I ran the numbers over the weekend just to make sure it still would make sense. And so I'm estimating a savings of $250,000 over the next 2.5 years. So I think it still is a good move to do this. It's just not as exciting as we were expecting, I think. Some other things to go along with that is we will have to move all of our operating accounts to central bank. And so we'll have to open those up over there. And then closing costs and loan fees are estimated at $15,000, $15,500. So just some fees that also go along with loans. And then on a related note, the Cherry Playground, we were, planning to use that $2 million capital projects loan to help fund the Cherry Playground. And so we're unable to do that with the $2 million note. However, we would like to incorporate that Cherry Playground in with some budget revisions. And we've received quotes on the Cherry Playground. Finance is planning to look through those quotes and make a recommendation to the board next month on which an amount that we want to go with there, or at least the quote we want to go with. And so that's kind of where we're at on the playground. Next slide for me. So like Beth mentioned, DESE did come through early actually on the funding and equity, or the fix the glitch. And so they've actually increased the per WADA amount from $8,300 to $10,492, and which is a $2,187 increase. And this does come 1 year before what we were expecting, which is really great news. And what it translates to is about $1 million extra in state revenue than we were expecting. So than what we had projected in June and what was approved at the June board meeting. So really exciting news there. And so based on this adjustment, we do want to prepare a budget adjustment or a budget revision, which would include like that Cherry Playground, student activities, so clubs. We want to increase some funding there to cover those clubs for the kids. We want to look at family assistance if we can help out with any families in need. And then student recruitment and development expenses, fundraising expenses, and then another important item to us is safety and emergency response systems. So I'm going to be putting that together, and I hope to have that ready for next board meeting.
I will just say that is very exciting. I'm glad to hear that you're thinking about sort of budget revisions. Obviously, that is quite a windfall that we were not expecting, and really happy to hear sort of after school activities are on that sort of list for discussion, because I think we are hindered by the lack of ability to do that over the last couple of years. And I think it is critical to really think about what those can look like and how we provide transportation so it's accessible to all of our students.
Yes, thank you. Next slide for me. And you can go on to the next slide. Another item, and we will need a board motion on this. So the accountants are still working on the Forms 990 for the school and the real estate holdings. And so we need to ask for a automatic extension, and the board needs to approve that. So if we can have a motion to approve the Form 990 school and real estate holdings extensions.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Next slide. Just continuing. So this has to do with building safety. So Roger has worked to get some quotes on upgrading the 3 campuses, the paging system. Currently, 4th floor does not have a paging system, and so he worked to get some quotes on that. They're right around $22,000 for Armor and Cherry, and then $26,000 for Oak. And so in looking at the upgrade for Armor, we also got quoted for the Cherry system and Oak system. Just want to give a little bit more background on that. And so this would be to completely renovate the Armor system. So not only to get the 4th floor working, but also to update that system because it's 20 years old or so. So there were several quotes there. And so Roger was also working to get another bid from another contractor. He hasn't done that yet. So with the quotes that we have, I think it would be a good idea to at least approve a system not to exceed $80,000. And so can we have a motion to approve that?
Just to clarify that, this intercom system, remember what the incident in St. Louis, how the intercom system was helpful. And after that, I've had a lot of teachers complaining about the fact that at least the other building wasn't working really properly, and the 4th floor at Armor is not working. It was working because of the renovation. People cut certain wire and was completely dysfunction. So, and we think at the safety committee, think that this is one emergency that we need to fix once for all. It has been a point of complaint for teachers because we use phones to communicate, and phones are turned down, the volume is not up, nobody hears it. So we're going to have what we want is centralized system, just like at Armor.
And one more comment too. So Armor, we could just fix the 4th floor for $3,000, but I think it would make sense to get it tied in and make it work for the whole building together.
The other question I have regarding safety is I saw in the notes overview in our folder a mention that Roger was looking at the metal detectors, and I hadn't heard that mentioned before. Did I read that correctly? Is there discussion about metal detectors, or is that not?
Yeah, yes, the safety committee, safety and well-being committee discussed that and asked Roger to look into to inspect the metal detectors, and they're working. The thing is, metal detector as such is not the only thing, because if you want to have it, you will need monitors, you will need to hire people to monitor them and so on. So it's going to be, it's more than just installing metal detector. It's about hiring. He's talking about a couple of people. So that's something we're not done yet looking into.
So can we have a motion to approve a system not to exceed $80,000?
I'll put a motion.
We have a
I
second.
second. This is Gwen.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, on a related note, Roger also sought after some quotes for a visitor management or emergency response system management. And so he found Raptor, and there's also a quote for that, $15,000 per year. It does seem a little high, but what that is so the system will manage, obviously, your visitors, but it'll take a scan of your driver's license, and Mr. Bang, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it'll check that against some kind of database and just make sure that this particular visitor isn't a threat. And then also the emergency management was an app. And so you have an app on your phone, and the teachers have or your staff have an app on your phone. And if there's an intruder, it blasts through this app. You can also have other notifications if there's a medical emergency, or if there's any other kind of emergency within the school that's kind of tailorable as well. And so that's part of the Raptor system. And Mr. Bang, did you have any comments about that Raptor system?
Now, all this, what we talk about, it has been a recommendation or measures to be taken for safety by the district, our schools, safety and well-being committee. Just to let you know that this year, one of our focus is safety and well-being. And that's why all these things were being proposed and looked into to make sure that the visitors and access to the building and so on create an additional safety.
Would this driver's license check thing, would that apply to parents or other family members? Or is this just for outside vendors, or what is everybody who comes in has to stick their driver's license into the system?
I don't know all the detail about this Raptor system. I know that it has a potential. How we're going to use it is going to be depending on us, probably.
Any other?
My concern would just be that it would glitch, or it would pull up something on a parent or a guardian, and then they're causing an issue. But I guess there's no real way to address that until we get in there and use it. But okay.
Another item is the bus safety, and so Roger looked for a quote to upfit our buses with GPS tracking, and that's called Transportant. And so that we're looking at $21,000 to get that installed on our buses, and then there's an annual subscription of $500, just around $500 a year. So just some other safety items for us to be looking into.
Yeah, this is for our AL buses. What it allows is the parents will know where the bus is when it arrived. If your kids board the bus, you will know it. If they're off the bus, you will know it. So it's kind of up. So I think it's being used by some district. I know Roger told me about Liberty. We said that because we don't have door-to-door at Armour, and it would be good to at least create some safety about for parents to know where's the bus and where if my kid is on the bus or not.
All right, next slide. Okay, this is my last topic here. So the health insurance renewal, we renew insurance every January. And so the insurance came back at 39% increase, which is really scary and horrible. Our broker went to bat for us and got us down to 36%, which, I mean, it's still crazy, but we did shop to see if we could get better quotes from other carriers, and nobody would touch us. And the reason for that is just COVID. We've had some COVID claims, so there's some issues there. United Healthcare came back similar to Humana, but if we were to go with them, they're subject to change once we actually enroll. So Humana is at least locked in with what they've quoted us. Just some other background, I don't know if you remember this or not, but in 2020, the very end of 2020, the board voted for a base amount of 610 for the base coverage, and that was health and gap together. Gap has stayed the same, thankfully. But what we're recommending is that the school absorb either 24% of that increase or 30% of that increase. And if you go to that next slide, just to kind of put that in perspective. So the total increase is 36%. There is what's called Go 365, and it's an app. And there's incentives that are involved with that, that the staff can get if they use that app. And so we were, this isn't something we talked about in finance. This was another brainstorming session I had after finance, but they can get up to or somewhere around 12% back in premiums. And so that's where the 24% kind of came from. But we realized that that's not always realistic, that staff can earn 12% back. So we were thinking more like 6% was more realistic. So if the school were to cover 30%, we did talk about 30% in finance as well, but this kind of puts it into a perspective, or at least a reasonable perspective of why the school could cover 30%. The financial impact of that, if you go to the next slide. So if the school were to absorb 24%, what that looks like on a 12-month scale, annotate here again, would be $192,000. And trying to draw. So $192,000. And of course, if you're just looking at this school year, that'd be half of that, so $96,000. But if the school were to absorb 30%, and again, we're looking at approximately 120 participants, over 12 months would be $240,000 is what the school would have to absorb. And if we're just talking about this year, this school year, it'd be $120,000. It does seem like a lot, but one thing that we really wanted to stress was we don't want to take away the raises that we just gave in June.
Yeah.
The staff, and this would take away those raises, and that would just
And more.
be horrible. And so we want the staff to know that we care about them, and we don't want them to feel, the complete pain from COVID. And I think that would be one way to alleviate that, is for the school to absorb 30%.
I agree. I mean, I think that is a painful increase, but to put that heavily on the staff, I don't think is fair. I know that's a tough, unexpected expense, but I would definitely be supportive of that. And I'm curious, when you say the increases is due to COVID, is this an increase across the board that everybody saw, or was there something that happened for us with COVID that caused us to increase even more so than others?
Michael, do you want to comment on that?
How much can you say about it, by the way?
Oh, if it's COVID, then I mean, we can address
So-
it separately.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. But that answers my question. Now do we need to vote as a board?
Yes, so we need a motion to approve the school to cover $777, or we could round it up to $780 as base coverage, health plus gap for each staff member. And so again,
what would be the increase for the staff then?
so the staff would they'd have to cover 6%.
Okay, thanks.
Now that we are looking at a base rate or base plan, that this increase would make it to where they don't have to pay. There would be a zero premium for them to pay, but that would be a higher deductible on that particular plan. So that's still being discussed though, and that's going to go to an insurance committee to finalize the plans that we are offering. But right now, that's the draft is
So
this would cover the base plan 100%.
next question is, by when should staff make a decision? I'm trying to say whether or not the vote has to happen today or no.
That's a good thought there. I don't know if Jessica can chime in on this. Do you know what the timing on that insurance committee is?
Open enrollment is in December and people need to be enrolled by the time we leave for break. So our committee is probably meeting after Thanksgiving break, choosing which plans, and then we're gonna kind of launch it to the rest of the staff and have a meeting with our rep to kind of explain the increases and how the plans work.
So we do need to vote on it tonight.
Yes.
I'm just going to say I'm very supportive. This is the right thing to do for the employees, but I do think they need to know just how much insurance is costing, because going forward, that's a huge issue that sometimes when teachers make that decision to look elsewhere to another district, they really don't calculate the benefit of the insurance, and it's huge. I just know that from experience.
Gwen, I'm in agreement. I was going to say, we do want to make sure that we still communicate to teachers what this is costing AEL.
Absolutely. I mean, this is salary. In other words, they need to know this is a salary increase for them right here.
A very good point.
And I hope I didn't come off in a negative way. I didn't mean it that way.
No, I think it is right. I think it's an important point to make. So I appreciate that.
Agreed.
Can we go ahead and get a motion to increase our sort of contribute? But how, Stephen, tell us what the motion needs to say.
So a motion for the school to have a base coverage rate of $780. And that's health and gap is what that is.
So moved.
Can we get a second?
I second Gwen.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Are you done?
Yep, I think we
Yes.
can move on.
That
Okay.
was a lot.
No.
Thank you, Stephen.
So the committee met to discuss the quarter one student attendance. This is part of our, it is indicated on the board data calendar. So this is how it looks like. Our district is at 95.06% of attendance rate. IEP students 83% higher, and ELL lower by 5.90%. ELL students. For this, the breakdown by ethnicity. On the right side is 95.06 is our district, and the rest is by ethnicity. The challenge of tracking by, I know the committee wanted to have the years prior to COVID quarter attendance for comparison purpose. Unfortunately, back then we did not have quarters because we started moving to quarters last year, and we did not have this tracking system. At that time, we used to have a monthly attendance data created by Jackie in the finance report. So every month, Jackie will tell us kind of what was the attendance rate at the time. When we checked it with Michael at the time, I mean, in 2019, so we were at 95% around that. And we ended the school year at 94 and 95% that year. So that's what we have. I'll go and check also how far back we were, but 95% looks fine.
And I mean, I would say when we looked at the previous data, while it's not exactly apples to apples, it was clear that we are back to sort of the attendance rate we saw pre-COVID, which was the main thing that we were curious about. That was one. And the other thing is, do we have any difference in attendance rates based on our subgroups? And so I think what was clear is we have very similar attendance to what we did pre-COVID, and we don't have any discrepancies. I mean, you can see sort of the lowest percentage was American Indian, as you can guess. That's a single digit number. It's such a tiny number that you can't read much into that that percentage, because it's just a couple of students essentially.
Great, good.
So this month we were not able to, of course, to present the test scores. Next month it's going to be an MWA and MAP tests. The MAP is a Missouri assessment program. NW is ready, but I did not want to put it here. It would, the committee did not have a chance to look at it, but the NW data is ready. The MAP, the only concern, I mean, not concern, but question we have, when will the state release the data? Because when we present it to the board, we would like to have comparison between AL and the suburb, the surrounding suburban school district. If it is not released, we won't be able to have that data. Hopefully it's going to be released before our board meeting. Otherwise, we'll just present our own data, but I'm sure the board would like to see how do we do compared to the rest of the surrounding school district.
And I do think now more than ever, those comparisons are really critical. I'm sure many of us have read the reports across the country, the drastic drops in test scores. And so it can be jarring to look at one schools, but to look at how do we compare to other schools like us is a really important thing for us to be aware of. So I appreciate that we're waiting until we can sort of accurately see those comparisons as well.
Any question, concern, feedback about the attendance? So recognitions. Let's start with our dear Alma nurse doing a great job. Alma is proud to celebrate Nurse Stephanie Cook. The natural ease with which she has adjusted to our school makes it difficult to believe that it's her first year. Her kindness and generosity extend beyond her nursing practice to include serving as an exceptional hostess to one of our international teachers. Hostess, I would say. She hosted one of our international teachers, helping her a lot. We appreciate her warmth and caring towards staff and students alike. Nurse Cook is indeed an angel in the stethoscope. Thank you, Stephanie. For Cherry staff, early morning supervision team, Sheila Baskin, Yamaja, Carlos Byrne, David Neabenda, Edward Jiba, they're right there helping in the morning. Thank you for helping our students start the day in a safe and positive manner. For Oak, Mr. Adam came to Académie Lafayette with a positive and very good understanding of his role as a teacher and educator. He's patient and very engaging with his students and their parents. His professionalism, true sense of collaboration, and teaching skills are already having an impact on our students. We are very happy we hired Mr. Adam. Salam. So just to review. So this is just sharing information. As I told you, Académie Lafayette is part of a cohort 1 for DESI MSIP 6 review. MSIP is Missouri School Improvement Plan, number 6, just started. So we are part of it. So we've submitted a pre-assessment document for AL. It's a whole long survey to answer question about our strategic plan, how we're sharing data, how the board is looking into the strategic plan. Is mainly the strategic plan part. So the first feedback before December that we need to correct, of course, we need to determine how stakeholders are involved in the implementation of the plan on an ongoing basis. That's why I told you that the plan we're developing, we need to make sure that we had at least one meeting for all the stakeholders to assess how it's being implemented. Develop a timeline for the implementation of specific action steps. Timeline. And the last one was ensure that the whole board review the information discussed in the district performance committee, which we're doing anyway, because that's what we just did. So meaning that the whole board. So this is only on 2 that we need to look into out of many other indicators. So we're in very good shape. Any question about this MSIP 6 strategic plan? By the way, we're developing a new one, and probably this is the old one that this is using to assess us, but I had very good feedback about how well our plan was developed. St. Louis just sent us the report. St. Louis University did their first visit reviewing. They were here with UCM, which is very nice to see again. Vicky Hughes from UCM and Alexandra was there. And then visited our 3 buildings on Friday and focused on building safety and buildings again in general. And so we're working with SLU also to see how we merge with some of the information document or oversight document with the document used by UCM and then the document used by SLU, and then see what are the pertinent aspects that we can capture there to have a very good review of our school. So I'll be working with Alexander to do that. So to look at also calendar of review of the years. So we just received the feedback from SLU shared with us. I didn't have a chance to review it yet.
I will say go ahead, Gwen. Oh, I thought Gwen was trying to say something.
No, I'm good.
I will say one of the things that we'll need to sort of think with SLU about, UCM had certain requirements for board member training if you were a first-year member or a previous member. And so I think we'll just need to get clarity on what that needs to look like. But Alexander, we can sort of follow up to sort of figure that out as you all discuss the overall oversight document.
Yeah, I can make note of that. I don't think that'll be a problem at all.
So MYP, IB MYP International Baccalaureate Middle Year Program. Middle Year Program is for the high school, for the middle school. every 5 years, there is a review to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. We are in the process of review again, and certain things that, of course, we need to address for some aspects of the curriculum for PE, health, and art curriculum. Need to update them better, and also fill out a self-study questionnaire for the board, for the admin and the board. So, of course, there will be some work on the curriculums for health, PE, and the arts.
But I was going to mention sort of in my report at the end, I did get an email from Kent Peterson with some tools for board self-assessment. It just takes about 15 minutes that each person fills out individually and is definitely helpful as part of this process. So that is something that I'll be sending out ideally in December. That's something that we could do so we can evaluate and determine anything that we need to do based on the assessment. Right.
Just for new board members, MYP is from 6th grade to 10th grade, International Baccalaureate. They finish with a personal project that they will submit. And then the diploma program is 11th grade and 12th grade for International Baccalaureate. So this is an interesting initiative, Lead to Read, being implemented at Cherry and Oak for 3rd graders. It is funded by School Smart Casey, which is great. So when we shared with School Smart Casey that this year, our focus, of course, would be safety and well-being of students, but also addressing the achievement gap and reading. And the most critical one was the 3rd graders, because 3rd graders have been very badly impacted by the pandemic. They were in kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and math for 6th grade. That's why you see that additional expand Stephen talked about is making sure the math in summer school was helpful. So for this one, 3rd graders are being held small groups, and Lead to Read is providing them the supervision. We don't do anything other than giving them a room. That's what we do. Give them a room, they have the supervisor, and the people helping kids are all over the place, all over the United States, and even in Canada. They brought this equipment. As you can see, those are where people are located, helping the kids all over. In the last one up there is in Canada. So, and they have supervisor in place. And the first assessment shows tremendous, significant growth for the cohort of students. So we're gonna continue to make sure that the students in 3rd grade are where they need to be by the end of the school year in reading. So any questions about this one? Again, it's an organization in Kansas City, but again, it was recommended by School Smart and funded by School Smart to help us. Okay, let's go to the last one.
Yep, I think final thing, just a couple questions. One, I know this is now our 2nd board meeting that we switched to having pre-materials in a shared folder sent out. Is that process working for everybody? Anything that we need to do differently as far as getting those materials out to the board? Everything's good. Okay.
Love the shared folder.
Awesome. Yes, I do. I think it is really helpful. So I've really appreciated it as well. And then the other thing, pre-COVID, we used to try to do sort of a holiday gathering, except the holidays are really busy. I think most people prefer like later in January to do just an informal get together. So I'll be sending out just thoughts on dates, but unless people disagree, we would probably try to do late January to get through the madness of the holidays and then try to do something just informally as a board. Great. Okay. Other than that, I think that's all we have. Any other final thoughts, questions?
Good board meeting. I appreciated all of the organization tonight. Thank you. And to start on time. I do appreciate that.
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Well, everybody enjoy your evenings.